One day after Hurricane Fiona made landfall on Puerto Rico, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer specifically called out the Trump administration on the Senate floor Monday. Hurricane Fiona has caused devastating damage on Puerto Rico. The Category 1 storm knocked out power and sparked landslides and massive floods on the island, which is still reeling from the deadly Hurricane Maria that hit the U.S. territory in 2017. Schumer said, quote, "The federal government has a responsibility to make sure we don't repeat the mistakes of the previous administration. The federal response should be swift, robust, and continue for as long as the island needs."
Thank you, Madam President.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Now, today, my thoughts are with all our fellow Americans in Puerto Rico and all communities across the Caribbean, battered by the destruction of Hurricane Fiona. As of this morning, well over 1 million residents on the island remain without power, and 2/3 remain without running water. Later today, I will get on the phone, in a short while, I will get on the phone with the FEMA administrator and urge that they be ready to approve temporary 100% federal cost share for all emergency protective services that Puerto Rico conducts in the coming days. That means covering the island's costs for distributing food and water, disaster operations, emergency medical care. Right now, the FEMA Disaster Relief Fund has about $15 billion as of late last week, a fund we Democrats fought extremely hard to secure. I will also join with my colleagues in the New York delegation to send FEMA a letter calling on them to be ready to support Puerto Rico on any upcoming requests for aid. 5 years, almost exactly 5 years to the day, after Puerto Rico was devastated by Hurricane Maria, the federal government has a responsibility to make sure we don't repeat the mistakes of the previous administration. The federal response should be swift, robust, and continue for as long as the island needs. Now on judges. As we begin the third week of the work period, the Senate presses ahead to confirm more of President Biden's impressive lineup of judicial nominees. This week, we'll aim to confirm our sixth Circuit Court nominee of the month, and this one's especially important. It's to move forward on Judge Florence Pan to serve as a lifetime appointment to the U.S. Circuit Court for the District of Columbia. After the Supreme Court, the D.C. Court of Appeals is the most important federal court in the country, with jurisdiction over cases involving Congress and executive branch agencies. It goes without saying that those nominated to serve as jurists on this court must be individuals of the highest caliber, of impeccable credentials, and must show deep fidelity to the Constitution. And the President couldn't have done better than Judge Pan, a brilliant, accomplished, and truly bipartisan nominee. The Senate confirmed her to the D.C. District Court with an overwhelmingly bipartisan vote of 68 to 30. Since then, her conduct on the bench has vindicated that margin. So I hope we can see similar bipartisan support this week. The daughter of Taiwanese immigrants, Judge Pan graduated from the University of Pennsylvania and earned her law degree from Stanford, where she wrote on the Law Review. As a judge for both the D.C. Superior Court and D.C. District Court, she's seen practically every kind of legal dispute under the sun: criminal law, family law, administrative law, consumer protection, immigration, employment law, and more. In short, she is a remarkably qualified and experienced jurist. So I urge my colleagues from both sides of the aisle to vote in favor of advancing this nominee. A seat on the D.C. Circuit deserves to be filled by a high-caliber and impartial jurist, and thankfully we have that in Judge Pan. Now on Kigali, the Kigali Treaty. Besides working on judicial nominations, the Senate will also vote this week to advance a pair of critically important measures on the floor. First, we will vote tomorrow to proceed to the Kigali Amendment to the Montreal Protocol, an agreement from the 1980s that united much of the world in reducing the use of industrial chemicals harmful to our ozone layer. 3 decades later, this agreement has been an unqualified success. The Kigali Amendment is a golden opportunity to strengthen U.S. businesses and secure an edge against China in the emerging industry of next-generation refrigerants. So let me explain. It sounds a little complicated, but it's important. The Kigali Amendment, which has been negotiated by both Democratic and Republican administrations, would build on the Montreal Protocols by affirming the U.S. commitment to phase out the use of a particularly dangerous chemical known as hydrofluorocarbons, abbreviated commonly as HFCs. Though used only in small amounts in household appliances like refrigerators and air conditioners, they wreak havoc on our air atmosphere. Many on both sides have long agreed we should transition away from their use. By ratifying the Kigali Amendment, businesses that specialize in the next generation of refrigerant technologies would see new markets open for them. In fact, one study suggests U.S. net exports could increase by $6 billion annually. $6 billion. So this is a pro-jobs bill. Combined with previous measures to reduce HFCs, the step could help create 150,000 new jobs here in the U.S. All the while, we get a much-needed leg up on Chinese businesses who still lag behind for now in developing viable HFC alternatives. Failure to ratify the Kigali Amendment would mean squandering billions in economic activity and potentially over 100,000 good-paying American jobs. The good news? This measure has broad support from the business community, including the Chamber of Commerce, the American Chemistry Council, the Semiconductor Industry Association, and many others. The same support should manifest itself here in the Senate. The first vote on cloture will require 60 senators to move forward, and because this is a treaty, we will then need the support of 2/3 of the chamber to ratify. For the sake of U.S. businesses, U.S. innovators, and the sake of our climate and American dominance in emerging markets, I urge my colleagues from both sides to vote in favor of advancing and ratifying the Kigali Amendment. Finally, on the Disclose Act. Madam President, today I'm announcing the Senate will vote this week to take up a measure critical to fighting the cancer of dark money in our elections, the Disclose Act. I've long promised to bring this bill to the floor, and I want to thank all my colleagues, and in particular Senator Whitehouse. He has done an amazing job documenting and pressing forward on trying to eliminate the evil scourge of dark money. He has been an amazing leader in championing this legislation. The Disclose Act is premised on a simple idea. Americans deserve to know who is trying to influence their elections. Sadly, most Americans today are largely in the dark, thanks to the abominable decision in Citizens United handed down by the Supreme Court's conservative majority. Their ruling has paved the way for billions in unlimited campaign contributions by super PACs and other dark money groups over the last decade. Ordinary citizens, meanwhile, have had their voices drowned out by elites who have millions to spare for political donations. And the worst part, much of this spending happens entirely in secret. That's not like a democracy. It is a veil cast over our democracy that must be ripped away once and for all. The Disclose Act is simple. It would require super PACs and other dark money groups to report anyone contributing $10,000 or more during an election. It would likewise require groups spending money on judicial nominees to disclose their donors too. There's no justification under heaven for keeping such massive contributions hidden from the public. This week, Republicans are going to have to take a stand on whether they want to fight the power of dark money or allow this cancer to grow even worse. Limiting the power of dark money shouldn't be a Democratic or Republican view. It should be bipartisan through and through. I hope Republicans will join us, because Americans intuitively understand that right now there's a stench taking over our campaign finance law. After all, when was the last time any of us heard voters cheer on the spread of dark money? When was the last time any of us heard voters say it's better for billionaires and special interests to buy elections in secret rather than be held accountable to the public? Of course they don't think that, unless they themselves are the ones cutting the multi-million-dollar checks. So this week, all of us will go on record on whether or not we think Americans deserve to know who is spending billions to sway our democracy. It will be our chance to put into practice the famous saying by Judge Louis D. Brandeis that sunlight is said to be the best disinfectant. I once again commend Senator Whitehouse for his years of leadership in fighting the sway of dark money and I urge all my colleagues to support this measure this week. I yield the floor.